Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for your time and for your attention to our group presentation video. And then this time we're gonna explain about testing listening comprehension. And let me introduce my group. Uh, my group Adelia Rizky Kumaira, Anilsa Septia, Widya Sari Ismail, Wulannya Umrah, Nur Reski Febriani, Nur Rahmi, and Nurul Fatanah Musni. And we are gonna start the first speaker. Enjoy.
Okay, now we discuss about listening. What is meant by listening? Listening is the ability to correctly receive and interpret messages in the communication process. Listening is key to all effective communication. Without the ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. And then listening also is the ability to identify and understand what others are saying. This involves understanding a speaker's accent, pronunciation, his grammar, his vocabulary, and grasping his meaning. And the next about the receptive skills. The receptive skills are listening and reading must be made on the basis of observing the test takers speaking or writing and not on the listening or reading itself. So our assessment of receptive performance must be made by inference. And then the next about testing reading and listening skills. The difficult of listening is different speakers produce the same sounds in different ways, e.g. Dialect, accent, stress, rhythm, intonation, etc. The listener has little or no control over the speed of talk. The spoken material is often heard only once, and then the listener cannot pause to work out the meaning. Speech is more likely to be distorted by background noise or the media that transmit sounds. The listener sometimes has to deal simultaneously with another text while listening, e.g. note taking, etc.
And next, I will explain about source of difficulty for learners. The first, unfamiliar vocabulary. Second, grammar. And third, text too long. Several people talking, unfamiliar context, lots of details, topic not interesting, them not clear, essence, speed, idiomatic speech, task too difficult, not prepared for the format, and the last, a lack of background information. And the next, types of listening text. The first, formal lectures. Second, causal chats. Third, face-to-face interaction. Telephone message, radio and TV presentation, and native speaker speech in all kinds of situations. And the last, loudspeaker, announcement, telephone conversations, radio news, interview, lesson, lecture, storytelling, shopping, conversation, gossip, interactions, meeting, watching television, and watching movies, and theater show. And the next, how do we listen? According basic stage of listening, Brown 2004. How do we listen? There are several stages. And the first, you recognize speech sound and hold a temporary imprint of them in short-term memory. Second, you simultaneously determine the type of speech event, monologue, interpersonal dialogue, transactional dialogue, that is being processed and attend to its context, who the speaker is, location, purpose, and the content of the message. The third, you use bottom-up linguistic decoding skills and or top-down background schema to bring a plausible interpretation to the message and a literal and intended meaning to the utterance. And the last, in most cases, except for repetition tasks, which involve short-term memory only, you delete the excess linguistic form in which the message was originally received in favor of conceptually retaining important or relevant information in long-term memory. Okay, and will be explained further by Anilsa Septia.
Okay, I will continue part of our material about a potential assessment objective. There are 4 potential assessment objectives. The first is comprehending or surveys structure element such as phonemes, words, intonation, or a grammatical category. The second is understanding of pragmatic context. The third is determining meaning of auditory input. And the last is developing the GIS, a global or comprehensive understanding. Next is about types of listening. There are 2 types of listening. The first is intensive listening, and the last is responsive listening. Intensive listening is what do you do in the classroom. The goal of intensive listening is to focus on a certain details. This focus on detail is often motivated by you having to answer a question on a listening exercise or test. The example of intensive listening, when you hear an airport announcement or to the sport scores on the radio news, this is intensive listening. Next is responsive listening. Responsive listening helps define the problems, but some situations require action on the part of listener. For example, if an employee complains that staff meetings are running into overtime, causing her to miss her ride home, she requires action on your part to solve the problem.
I'm Widya Ismail and I will explain about the validity in listening assessment. So there are 2. The first is measure comprehension. It includes not hearing, spelling, prior knowledge of a topic, or reading long multiple choice question. And the second is base assessment on the learning objectives and listening tasks of the unit or course. The next slide is about reliability in listening assessment. The first is you should minimize anxiety, and the second, ensure all learners can hear or see the text or the video equally, and you should make sure that there are no distracting noises because it will be give an interference in listening assessment. So and then for the last, you should avoid ambiguous or trick test item. Ensure more than one scorer for correcting open-ended test item. And there are some steps in designing listening tasks. The first is identify the purpose of the listening task, keeping in mind about the learner goals. So in this case, the listening task should reflect what students are learning and what they need. The second is decide on the format for task item and create the task form. The third is create or secure listening passage to be used in the task. In this case, many commercial program comes with audio files for authentic materials. So you could record a radio segment maybe, or take an advantage or English listening material available on the internet. And I think nowadays universities and professional language usually often have record language sample on their website, so you can visit there and find a lot of the authentic materials. And the next is be sure the instructions are clear. Don't risk letting student misunderstanding of the task direction get in the way of assessing listening skill. And the next is ensure optimal listening comprehension by framing the task to activate background information that will aid in comprehension. So, for example, you could introduce a listening segment by saying, in the passage, you will hear two friends are having a conversation in a train station. So, give step-by-step instruction for more complex listening tasks. And for the last and the important one is determine scoring criteria. Scoring true or false or maybe multiple choice item is uncomplicated, but asking students to take notes on a passage or write a summary present a lot of the challenge. Thank you.
Okay, after we learn about the previous slide before, now we're gonna learn about the design of multiple choice. There are 4 points that we must understand. The first one is use as much virtual materials as possible to avoid interference of other language skills. Virtual materials can be categorized as a fine art, others as documentary record. For the second point is keep the stem or the questions short so the students can get the instruction from the questions easily. For the third point is use 3 instead of 4 options, because on the multiple choice, if the question have less than 3 options, students can guess the answer. Okay, for the last point is keep the language of the option simple, because on the multiple choice we must use a communicative language. After we learn about the design of multiple choice, now we're gonna learn about the activity types of testing listening comprehension. There are 2 activities that the most frequently used. The first one is information transfer. Information transfer is the process for transferring information from another person or location to another. If a teacher wants to do this activity, the first one is we must drawing a route on a sketch or map, labeling diagrams or picture. The last is completing a form or a table. The next is about picture dictation. Picture dictation is a low preparation fun activity that will works well with a large of classes, and especially for young students and teens. Okay, now we're gonna learn about we're gonna next for the example. Okay, uh, for the example, for this activity, the teachers needs a little bit of imagination. Okay, both picture need students to do or draw something that you are describe, and they have to do is simply listen and draw. For the first picture, students needs to drawing a road on a sketch or map, because on the picture 1 there is a mini map, so students will labeling a diagrams or picture. Okay, After the students doing these activities, students will get more vocabulary like in the middle of the map, uh, in the top, bottom, or and etc. Okay, I think that's all. The next material will be explained by the next speaker.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Nur Fatanah Musni, and now we're gonna explain about types of listening test item. One is oral clause. The oral clause technique is a research besides strategy. The econ tracks student to thinking about what word would fit into the sentence of making sense of the text, and then filter or ordering. And then what is it? Example, what is it is like example, I forget it when I leave home this morning. This made me angry because it is useful. I don't like it very much, but I need it. But not every person has one. But I think most people do. Some people like to look at it, and not many people play with it. Mine is quite heavy. What is it? Time is yours to give answer of this question. And then the next, extended listening. Student listening to the extended extra, not based on visual. 2. Students are asking multiple choice question based on a extended passenger.
Now I'm going to explain the next slide, that's writing item for extended listening. Example to a talk. In writing items, the first is we should focus on the most important point for the content, the general meaning and intention of the message. The second is avoid testing memorization of unimportant or irrelevant points. The third is space out the items throughout the passage. We should not punish the student or for not being able to answer a subsequent item because it comes too soon after the previous one. The fourth is pay attention to site posting. It is only fair that students should be warned by keywords in the test item and the passage about that. The last is give sufficient time to students to look through the item before they listen to the relevant excerpt. Familiarization with the items will compensate to some extent for the lack of extra linguistic features, which help comprehension in real-life situations. Next, step in writing tasks. The first is identify the main points in the text that is unit of meaning. The second is decide what type of strategy is normally used for decoding this type of text and which process are involved. The third is if understanding the title is aimed at, make sure that your question covers the main points and are distributed evenly over the text. The fourth is if global understanding is aimed at, find items which do not focus on details.
Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you enjoy the presentation.